Well, that's you not there. You want to ask a question about Obama again?
And him being quite liberal and him having some things to say about literal interpretation of the Bible.
Yeah, so Barack Obama is not going to say, go out, read the Bible literally, go back to Leviticus and Deuteronomy and see all these prescriptions against eating shellfish or whatever it is. He's not going to tell us to do that.
Well, yeah, stoning your wife to death if she's found not to be a virgin on the way. Or killing your children if they talk back to their fathers.
So we do have someone in the most powerful job in the world who does profess to be deeply religious in a way, but he does, what he professes is a liberal theological view. And by US standards, he's also liberal politically. Mm-hmm. He's not necessarily liberal politically by Australian standards, but by the standards of the US, where the entire politics is far more right-wing than here, he counts as a liberal.
Okay, that's good. All right, so do you think it's okay? Can a moderate religious group turn zealous into a zealous religious group, or at least individuals, or at least sprout zealotry when times get tough, when they're faced with a form of uncertainty, when they have their survival instinct kicks in?
What tends to happen in those circumstances historically, I think, is that you get factions, you get splinters. You would get some groups that feel the insecurity that you're speaking of and respond to that with more conservative theological views, perhaps more conservative political views, and are likely to break away from the mainstream. Now, once they've broken away, they might then survive and thrive, and they might become larger than what they've broken away from. But I don't think what you're likely to get is the entirety of, say, the Anglican Church or the Catholic Church, Methodist Church, whatever it is, just morphing into something much more, at least not in the short term. I don't see that as something that happens. And I think in the longer term, in fact, there are pressures on all of those organisations to become more liberal and secular. But certainly if times get tough, there's going to be some tendency for these splinter groups, these much more conservative groups to arrive on the scene and to go off and form their own organisations. I mean, in the United States, you end up with these very conservative mega churches which seem to come from nowhere. It's not that the original church has been transformed, it's that this whole new phenomenon has grown up. These highly conservative, often Pentecostal, huge organisations which insulate their members from the larger society and provide for all their needs in a way, and then come back into the political sphere where they're very influential and cause a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a more likely phenomenon.
Mm. So do you think it would be very easy for a very extreme form of religious Pentecostal style, like fire and brimstone, the word of God is literal truth and the law of God is the way we should be working? Do you think that's possible these
days? Kind of Pentecostal, dominionist, evangelical.
Do you think?
Well, it certainly exists in the US, and it certainly exists here as well, but on a much smaller scale.
Yes, on a much smaller scale. But do you think that they'd be able to really move the presidency or get somebody into such a strong position that old religious law was reinstated?
No, I don't think that's going to happen in the short term. But I think in some areas the Bush administration went awfully close to being like that.
Right. I mean, which areas?
Oh, all that. Well, bioethics, for example. Yeah. The refusal to fund stem cell research, but other things as well. The great deal of funding that was given to church organisations to take up social roles that arguably are roles where the government should play a much greater part. At every level, pervasively right through, even the things like, and this may be apocryphal, but it's claimed that J.K. Rowling was not given an honour that was proposed that she be given, recommended she be given in the US, because someone within the Bush administration countermanded it on the basis that J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, encourages witchcraft, right? I mean, you can find examples all the way through. As I can't verify that one's real, but I've heard it said by someone who seemed to know what they're talking about. But pervasively, all the way through that administration, many, many decisions were being taken of that kind. Now, that's not to say that women were forced into burqas or the medieval Christian equivalent overnight or anything like that, or that the contraceptive pill was banned, or that, education for women as well. Nothing like that happened. But on a lesser scale than that, the Bush administration, moved towards that, and it was a very dangerous kind of movement. I think it's something we should breathe a great sigh of relief over, that administration is no longer there in the US. The seeds of something much more dramatic are still there in the US, but I think it would take major economic and other change before it took over the extent that some kind of truly dominionist government, something much more radical even than the Bush administration, could be put into power. And we're further away still from that happening in Australia. So I don't want to be alarmist about it, but the seeds certainly are there. I think the immediate concern is from much more specific forces that in the US try to stop the teaching of evolution.
Yeah, right. Or try and impose some sort of alternative idea.
Yeah, so-called intelligent design. In earlier stages, creation science, which was now morphed into this thing called intelligent design, which will morph in other ways. There's that specific danger. And there are always threats to any proposals that violate traditional Catholic type morality. So there's always some danger to things like stem cell research. There's always a danger to things like abortion. Abortion rights are continually under challenge. Those kind of specific violations of traditional moralities are always in danger. But it would be alarmist to think that some kind of Christian dominionist government is about to take over in any Western country at the moment. We're nowhere near at that stage, fortunately.
So obviously, I think the ID sort of challenge was a bit of a mistake, but I'm sure it's got a lot of followers, but it definitely didn't do very well in court.
Well, it failed in the Dover case.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. And I think with a lot of the cases taken to court, the religious have failed, or the masked religious.
Look,
have failed.
I think the court system in the US does more or less accept that any kind of attempt to put forward these so-called alternatives to evolution really is motivated by religion, and that is a violation of the First Amendment. Right? That is a violation of the separation of church and state. If the state changes its teaching in public schools in a way that is designed to help religion, and which in effect is putting across a religious view. So those cases have been failing, they will continue to fail. But other things may have more chance of surviving. The ID movement is continuing to morph, and I'm sure we're going to see a whole series of new bills going up through the political process next year and in coming years, trying new approaches.